it sounds like your growth strategy initially was let's start go regionally, and well, people come to you. Is that what happened? Somebody says, I want to open one of
Yeah,
these.
yep, yeah. And not fully, I think, understanding all of the things related to supply chain at the time, and
Right.
especially going through it during a pandemic. It was one of those things where we were like, this is awesome, like let's do it.
Sure.
And thankfully, it worked out. We became a member of IFA after that point. And I remember somebody asking me at IFA, why would you do that? And I remember replying and being like, well, because it was just so cool. And they were like, thank God it worked out for you, because it doesn't always work out for a lot of people. And that was the first time when I, put my thinking cap on and I was like, oh,
Uh,
I could kind of see why, like that makes sense.
right.
We expanded there first, and then we were, focusing on growing the New York market. And then we had that franchisee who already owned a location in New York also want to do the Florida locations, and they are one of our top performing franchisees. So we were very comfortable allowing
Sure.
them to go down into that other market. And, we're very hands on and very supportive as well. So we're still kind of like a small little group, and it's really nice, and it makes support easy for now.
Right. Right.
And then we expanded out into Boston as well, which is not too far from upstate New York. So we
Yeah.
decided that that would be a good location too.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Well, look, the horse left the barn, right? Going to Colorado. So,
Right.
but doesn't mean that you have
Right.
to keep growing, out west until you're good and ready.
I would love to. I mean, the product's well received out there. People love it. I don't think it's something that is enjoyed in one particular area
Mhm.
over another. I think it's just about marketing the product, getting it in front of people, introducing the brand, to a new customer base, and then growing from there.
Yeah. How did you get started with franchising though? Did you guys seek, I know Jessica had been involved with trying to get the yoga studio off the ground in franchising, but did you guys seek outside help in franchising? I heard you said you joined the IFA after you already started franchising. Who did you lean on?
Yes.
How did you get everything you needed to franchise your company?
Yeah, so we started working with the same group that Jessica worked with when she franchised the hot yoga concept.
Okay.
Again, she couldn't do much with that after she had already become a franchise because of the pandemic. And then, especially in New York, where we are, it was so challenging for fitness during those 2 years because they were shut down and they finally opened back up, but it was like rebuilding businesses from scratch.
Sure.
So she just decided to not focus on the hot yoga spot franchising at that time. And we worked with the same group of advisors that she had worked with the hot yoga spot concept. And then we franchised, we started selling some, we started opening some, fast forward
Hmm.
a year or two. And there were things like, I think anybody who's new to the franchise space, it's such a it's such a unique type of environment where you really don't know things unless you have somebody there to show you. And we started to experience some things related to just like simple things like internal communication, for example. We were
Hmm.
like, how do we structure this where we're not getting texts and calls directly from our franchisees all day every day?
Right.
Where how do we like channel the communication and streamline it, and just little things like that, that you really don't know until you know.
Hmm.
um and I had a bunch of questions, and we got connected with oh my goodness, somebody from IFA just through like a friend of a friend.
Okay.
And they had said, oh, you should totally go to this conference. And I had no idea beforehand. I was like, I don't know what IFA is. Nobody told us. We had no idea. And so I went the first year that we became a franchise, and I felt like I was a kid in a candy store. The people that I connected with were all amazing. There were so many different people there from my industry
Hmm.
that had a wealth of knowledge and experience to share. I mean, it was really the best experience ever. And it allowed me to focus on my business and the growth of my business and just the operations of my business in a totally different way.
Hmm.
And I loved it. I mean, I love the entire franchise community and the entire franchise world. It's so special. And it's, when I went to IFA the first time, I was like, wow, like I'm with my people.
Right,
Sometimes
right.
like being an entrepreneur and like being, especially in upstate New York, and, not knocking upstate New York, I love it here, but there aren't a lot of people who are in the same world as I am every
Sure.
day. So it becomes challenging when you try to look for mentorship, or you look to join a group of, entrepreneurs to discuss issues with, or just, bounce ideas off of, and they're not really here, or maybe I'm just having trouble finding them. And so
Uh-huh.
when I went to IFA and I was able to connect with all of these like-minded people who were so excited about franchising, it just felt like I was at home and I was with my people. And I still connect with a lot of the people that I met at that first IFA today. So
Mm-hmm. No, Anne Marie,
yeah.
I think you perfectly described what it was like for me when I first went to my first IFA convention, because you don't even know what you don't know. Probably,
Yeah.
I would imagine, like, you go in thinking you're in the nutrition business, right? I know I went in thinking I'm in the sports business. And then you start learning about franchising, you realize, okay, wait a minute. That's just a vehicle that we're using, because
Yep.
you said it yourself. You had an issue with like trying to figure out communication. I'm sure you learned about all the different technology and resources that were out there. And now all of
Yeah.
a sudden you're learning on how to be a franchisor, because it has nothing to do with the nutrition business now. And it has to
Right.
do with how
Oh,
do we,
100%.
right? We have to make our franchisees successful. And we're
Right.
using nutrition as that, again, I always say as the vehicle, but at the end of the day, we're in the franchise business is totally different than just being, having a smoothie shop or running a sports league or a home services business. And it's a
Oh,
huge,
100%.
huge responsibility. When you're really
Yeah.
realizing other people's success, you feel a sense of responsibility to that, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, their success is our success, is the
Mm-hmm.
brand success. I mean, you can't have one without the other. And I agree with you. You really are in the business of franchising. It doesn't matter what you do. Everybody in the franchising world essentially does the same thing in one way
Right.
or another. And when I took a CFE credit course during the first IFA, and it was hosted or sponsored by Profit Soup, and they were talking about just kind of how to break up the different aspects of your franchise and how to focus on each aspect of it in a different way. I'm not doing it justice the way I'm explaining it, but it was basically like putting everything into its own category
Mm-hmm.
as it relates to your business. So, for example, marketing was a category and operations was another. For us, we're food service, so we have, cost of goods and cost of sale and things like that. And your labor goes into another, and it was like very basic things. But
Right.
when they outlined it on paper, and I was like, wow, like I can look at my business through this global lens, and I can compare how my businesses perform with my franchisees' businesses, which are all ultimately my businesses. And,
Right.
we can like, we'll start benchmarking, and we'll start,
Mm-hmm.
figuring all of those like KPIs out. Like I went into my first year of IFA and I had no idea what a KPI was. Like people were
Sure.
using all these fancy, acronyms, and they're like, yeah, well, we need this, that, and the other thing, your KPIs and your this, that. And I'm like, what the hell is going on?
Look at you
But
now.
um
Today, using key performance indicators and using dashboards and everything early on is really, though, it would have been a dream 20 years ago for people to
yeah.
have access to what we have today, because it has changed a lot. The availability of resources in franchising has enormously progressed, which
Right. And
allows some,
go ahead.
folks like you and Jessica starting out, where you get to almost act like a well experienced franchisor, having access to those tools that normally you wouldn't have, and you don't have to make those
Right.
mistakes.
And that's really, I think, just the beauty of this franchise community. There are those resources out there, and you are able to take advantage of them. I guess now, I didn't actually know that they weren't always available to everybody. So that's
Mm-hmm.
great to know that I came into this at a good time. But it's nice to know that those are there and the support is there. And I think the one thing that really sets franchising apart from any other industry is you could have a conversation with your direct competitor and they are so willing to help you in any way, shape, or form. It is the most interesting thing to me. Like I went into IFA with an agenda. I had a list of people that I wanted to target and talk to and, pick their brains about things. And I found them and I just, introduced myself, and I was completely transparent, about
Sure.
what I was doing and who I was and the questions I had. And they were so willing to sit down with me and just answer any question I had. Like,
Mm-hmm.
show me their own spreadsheets and show me their own tools and resources that they use to optimize their own businesses. And that, I think, to me was the most special piece of it. It's like all of these people are there to support one another because we all care about the health and success of franchising as a whole.
Sure.
Which is nice.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.